We're here at the Cuomo Walk the Talk protests in Albany. There are around, I would estimate, 1,000 people here. They were bussed in from over 19 locations. 19 buses came in to Albany to say, Cuomo, no more with the talking on the two sides of your mouth when it comes to fracking. He has technically banned fracking in the state, but fracking facilities, processing facilities, dump sites are still being erected in the States. So it's a bit of double talk, and he has ambitions to run for president in 2020, but Cynthia Nixon, his primary challenger, is really giving him a run for his money. She is here today talking to constituents, talking to people who are angry that Governor Cuomo is not leading the way on climate change. New York is one of the most progressive states in the country, yet has not caught up where it needs to be in terms of banning fracking and other processes that hurt the environment. One of those things that they're protesting is a site that is going to be built or set to be built right here in Albany. It's a minority community, largely very, very impoverished, and Cuomo has greenlit a basically 16 megawatt power plant to be built here, and everyone who's been bussed in here, or everyone who came in here to protest, basically said, no longer. We're not going to do these environmentally racist policies. And Cuomo, we're not going to stand for you saying one thing, but actually behind the scenes acting another way. Why do you think that he's talking out of both sides of his mouth?
Well, now he has to prove himself. It's an election year. He has competition, and, the competition is definitely pointing out the things that he says but he's not doing. So he needs either to step up to the plate or let somebody else take over.
You came all the way from Washington, D.C. Why is it so important for you to come to New York where, we're theoretically a blue state here, but we have all of these issues where Cuomo says that he's banning fracking, but pipelines are going through, fracking dump sites are in the area, and they're in predominantly more minority and poor areas?
Well, we definitely want to hold Governor Cuomo accountable. I'm the policy director for Green for All, and so this is very important to us. Though New York is seen as a very progressive state, if we aren't making sure that our state representatives and our governors are actually doing the work that needs to be done, we want to say no to fracking. We want to make sure that polluters pay, and we want to see New York embrace 100% renewables. And so we just wanted to be a part of this march. We thought it was really important to join our partners like at New York Renews and We Act, et cetera, but we wanted to make it known that we want to hold Governor Cuomo accountable, make sure that he walks the talk.
So you have three demands, or the protesters here have three demands. Stop fracking infrastructure, which Cuomo hasn't done despite banning fracking theoretically. Two, basically have the polluters pay for the damage that they're doing. And three, what is the third one? You got to fill me in here.
To ask Cuomo to switch to 100% renewable fuels.
There we go. He's promised 50% by 2030, but you're saying that's not good enough.
Well, for starters, that's not good enough, and secondly, we're not going to get there with building new fossil fuel infrastructure. So we should be stopping the construction of any new fossil fuel infrastructure in the state, and particularly we should be stopping the production of any fossil fuel infrastructure that's being used to transport fracked fuels from Pennsylvania, where it's polluting the land and wreaking havoc on people, and bringing it across our state when we don't need these new constructions, including pipelines and power plants that are destroying our land and our environment, and making things tougher for Pennsylvania as well.
So it seems like he's kind of pushing through his agenda with the powerless.
Absolutely, and catering to companies, corporate polluters, trying to corrupt actually as well labor. To come over to his side with promises of jobs, the usual process where the government people essentially try to divide and conquer or try to sell a little something to everybody. And in this case, absolutely nobody is going to benefit from this except corporate polluters.
Can you talk about the potential environmentally racist ramifications of putting a power plant in this area specifically?
Yes, I think that this neighborhood, this Sheridan Hollow and this station has a really terrible racist history of environmental pollution that I think would not have happened in a white community. Basically from 81 to 94, they were burning garbage here. It was shut down finally because Mario Cuomo shut it down because he couldn't escape the fact of what was happening anymore. And now what's happening is they want to make this a microgrid, and they want to power it with fracked gas. The community says we've endured too much environmental racism already. This is not the site to do it. No site is the site to do it, but particularly this community has seen firsthand the cancer and the explosion of health issues that have been caused by this kind of pollution, and this community is demanding a 100% renewable solution. They want to do thermal, and so they're asking for that. They're demanding that, and our governor and our government should give them that option. Should run those options by them, not just lock them into fossil fuels and frack gas, because that's the industry that funds the governor's campaign.
Cynthia Nixon seems to be pushing back as his primary challenger from the left. She is here today. Can you talk about what it means for him to have an actual primary challenger? Will this push him to the left, and does she have a shot?
Absolutely. So I'm with a group called Sunrise. We're building an army of young people to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. And last October, we went to Governor Cuomo's office and asked him to pledge to refuse donations from oil, coal, and gas CEOs and their lobbyists. He got back to us, no commitment, but said, looking forward to working together in the future. We asked him again in January, and then last week we asked Cynthia. Within a week, she got back to us and pledged, and she won our endorsement on Friday, and we will likely be campaigning to support her to win, because if it takes months and months for somebody who's painting themselves as a climate leader to decide whether or not they're going to take money from the industry that is destroying people's lives, destroying our futures, displacing millions of Americans like right here today already, then he's not somebody we can trust. And we can't just say, a Democrat is a Democrat and they're good enough that way when they're Democrat in name only, and when they're not actually willing to stand up to the status quo, or to challenge the violent impacts of these corporations on our communities.
You don't think that Cynthia Nixon could beat him in the primary and then maybe move us all to move the whole state to the left, I guess?
I don't know what her chances are of beating him in the primary, but from what I've heard, I think she would be amazing. And so I really hope that she's right now, I think, claiming environmental kind of consciousness as a centerpiece of her platform, and I think that if she were to actually win and then do that, that would be amazing.
In case you had any doubts about Cynthia Nixon's progressive credentials, she's leading this march right now.
Fossil fuels. Cuomo, don't be a fool. Get New York on fossil fuels.
We called for a ban on fracking. We got the ban on wells. We didn't get the ban on pipelines and power plants like this one, which has poisoned this community for over 30 years as a trash incinerator. Now Governor Cuomo wants to bring in frack gas, continue the pollution here, when we could do this with renewables. So that's why we got 1,000 people here to say no, and ask Andrew Cuomo, what will be your legacy?
Governor Cuomo wants to be president. CPV is his 5th largest donor. So he wants the oil and gas industry to support him. So he made a deal. If they would allow CPV to be built, he would give them a moratorium. They could call it a ban and confuse the people of New York. It's not a ban, it's a moratorium. It can be stopped at any time. What it allows, you see, there's no money to be made right now in the gas industry with these power plants. They want to get this gas so that they can ship it abroad and get 6 times as much for it. And that's why they're doing it. It's the build out of hydrofracking infrastructures. And the CPV power plant is the raison d'etre for that build out. That's why we have to stop it.